All right, the bonus round is back here on GT. I'm Jeff Keighley with Anthony, Shane, and Marcus, and this week we're going to talk about virtual reality, something that people have been talking about for a while. Lots of debate and discussion lately about some new things. Oculus is getting a ton of attention, not just in the gaming world, but kind of across all of entertainment. Sony's got Project Morpheus. Have you guys all experienced VR in one form or another?
Oh yeah.
All right.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I had a really interesting experience a couple weeks ago playing with the Gear VR, which was the sort of Oculus and Samsung, and it's pretty amazing. You put like the Samsung, the Note phone in a visor, and you get VR, and it's actually like, it's pretty impressive how well it works.
Well, Oculus uses Samsung screens already, right?
I think you might be right. Yeah,
I think they get the screen tech from Samsung.
Yeah, it's like a 1080p screen, full head tracking, like good 60 frames per second. Like I was pretty impressed with how great it worked. Because one of the things that is interesting about Oculus is, everyone's talking about these headsets, how great they are. It's like, what machine will you have to run it?
Yeah.
It's not going to run off your MacBook.
No.
So, anyways, VR as a concept. Anthony, are you a believer that this is the way you're going to consume all games
I'm way
in the future?
into it, but no, this hyperbole about every game
Right.
eventually being in VR, I don't buy.
Right.
There are certain games that I play now that have been converted to the Oculus where, and these are the standard sort of AAA games. Like if you play the Mirror's Edge mod for the Oculus, or if you play things like Skyrim on the Oculus or whatever, and you get this feeling that like the standard action game, the standard AAA game, isn't going to just immediately 100% translate.
Right.
It's kind of like a good iPhone game. You can take whatever console game you want and put it on an iPhone and put a virtual controller there.
Yeah,
but it's not made for that. And
I think most people seem to accept that you're not just going to start shooting up in Call of Duty.
No, absolutely not. But things that are really built for it, I think horror games work so well. Anything where you genuinely do feel cut off from reality works so incredibly well in VR. And I think, specific experiences, specific virtual worlds, and just exploration experiences are unbelievable in it. But no, I don't think eventually everything will be all VR all the time.
But Shane, are there games that you imagine, think, hey, like this is going to be the way I want to play this game in the future?
Well, me personally, ever since I was a little kid, I always felt like video games were heading towards this.
Right.
Like I always felt, and maybe other people look at it differently, but to me, I always felt like the ultimate goal was virtual reality.
Yep.
And it begins with Star Trek and the holodeck and seeing stuff like that in sci-fi movies that you watch or whatever. And now that it's here, or kind of here,
right.
I don't know if that ideal was just.
Right.
I don't know if that's the way it is going to go forward. I mean,
do you get the feeling like I do where I sort of, when I saw like Samsung watches and Apple watches come out, I felt like we're just doing it because we've always seen it in sci-fi, and so we feel like we need to have it.
Right.
And sometimes I feel like certain things are being translated into VR specifically just because we've always felt like this is our end goal. This is our
they've kind of been
game.
romanticized, right?
Yeah,
and
for sure.
Then when you ask, it's like the Apple Watch or whatever. It's like, I look at that, I'm like, I haven't worn a watch since like 1998.
Yeah.
Literally. And it's like, so it has to be tethered to my phone. Well, why don't I just pull the phone out of my pocket and look at it? Like I can't get it. But when I was a kid, sure, I would have thought a watch that I could talk into and see people on would have been like mind-blowing. But so your perception changes over time based upon your experiences, so to speak. But what you realize when virtual reality gets here is that it's just not that practical.
Yeah.
It closes you off from everything else. Like, for instance, the VR that works with your phone.
Yep.
Are people really going to do that in public? Are you going to sit there with your phone with a people are going to mug people. You're going to be a mark.
What happens when you get a call, right?
Yeah.
That's the thing.
Right.
It's like, wait,
I'm sure there's some kind of interface inside it or whatever.
Well, that's the thing, is they actually said that when you are in VR on the Gear, it shuts down notifications from your phone, and it puts all of the hardware into the VR.
Yeah, and you
needs
can
it all,
go,
yeah.
there's like a little touchpad on the side, and you can go back to the menu and like navigate around, but you're right, it's like that, burns your battery life, I mean, there's lots of stuff there, and you're right, like I think as a short session experience, I think it's, like the games I played for Gear VR, they were tech demos, and I think it's kind of fun and there's a novelty to it, but yeah, are you going to spend 20 hours?
And I think just because it's on your phone doesn't mean they're thinking of it as a mobile experience too, right?
Oh,
They're
sure.
thinking you're at home and you put it on.
I was just using that as an example.
But even at home, it's like, I don't know, there was this mental barrier for a lot of people in motion gaming, and I look silly, I feel silly. Take that and add a helmet to it where you can't see what people are doing around you.
Well, I think the bigger issue for adoption is going to be that people don't know if it makes them sick until they try it.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the bottom line. People who can ride every roller coaster and go to Six Flags and ride all day and never get sick. Some of those people will go into virtual reality and become ill within 30 seconds. And so, you know, these are going to be expensive. I mean, the lowest price I've seen for either Morpheus or Oculus has been $200. And even then they were like, yeah, it's probably going to be a little more than that. Asking
and then you
somebody,
factor in the hardware.
Right.
That's what I liked about Gear VR is that, hey, this is like an all-in-one solution. It's your phone, and yeah, you have to buy some plastic and some lenses and that headgear. But yeah, the thing is with Oculus, you're going to have to buy the headset and then your PC.
Well, even with Morpheus, if you have to pay $200 just for the headset or whatever to go with your PS4, you're asking people to place a pretty big bet with their money. Not knowing until they put that thing on whether it's going to be completely worthless to them. So I kind of have this fear in the back of my head that all of this is kind of headed right towards like the Virtual Boy thing again, where it turns into this big news story where they're like, oh, you put on Morpheus and you puke, and like
Mario World
there's YouTube videos of people taking it off and falling down. Like it's going back to the Wii, where people are like throwing their Wii remote through televisions. It's like
some of that.
Yeah, sure.
Do you think it's more? I mean, it's more than a Virtual
Some people
Boy,
will
right?
have to die.
More than a
That's
what?
just the way it is.
The opportunity is bigger than Virtual Boy, though, don't you think?
Oh, of course.
Right. I mean,
the big opportunity here, and you can see why Facebook bought Oculus, is because what they're going to do is they're going to create a virtual Facebook. And chances are, you're going to be paying for virtual real estate, and people can come into your virtual apartment with all the virtual paintings on the walls that you paid money for. And you're going to sit
crap on the couch.
But that's where it's all headed. Like,
the
and
Sims meets so many.
Look,
Sony
Facebook thinks big, and so they're looking at this as like sort of the progenitor of what's to come, which is eventually Facebook is going to be this virtual place where you go to actually visit with your mom and dad in a virtual space. And so this is just kind of the beginning of all of it.
Well, and it's even bigger than that. And I think even when you talk to Palmer about it, like gaming is a great way to get this into everybody's homes.
The Trojan horse.
Because gaming is just such a hardware fetishist's hobby, right? Like we all want the new thing. So you get an Oculus into somebody's home, but then, thinking about in terms of education, thinking in terms of the medical world, in the terms of like therapy,
pornography,
it all like comes out of that. And the gaming audience, they're the people who want to buy a headset.
They're going to be the ones that spend the money.
Or they're always the early adopters.
Yep, exactly. So Marcus, what's your take on VR?
I'm Team VR. I tried the Rift at E3, and I played the platform coin collecting game, which I'd never in a million years would
Lucky's Tale.
I never thought that would work in a virtual reality headset.
Fun, right?
And it's a lot of fun. And I can see, that was coming out, the day after the Sony press conference where No Man's Sky had just been, looked amazing. So then I'm thinking, Morpheus, No Man's Sky, PS4 in my games room. That's the future right there. And I see all the other aspects of it. I see that yes, it's education and it's the medical stuff. I mean fantastic voyage time. It's going to happen, and we know that the tech is actually, when it's going to get better, it's going to get smaller. We know those goggles are going to get smaller and they're going to get a little bit cheaper.
No, I agree, though. I think Lucky's Tale is interesting because that's a game that, it's not first person. You're just looking at the character, but just the chance of looking around is cool. And yes, like Valve has a really cool room where you can go into this VR demo, and it's like all of a sudden the room you walk in, you put the headset on, it's the actual room in VR, and the actual, escape. You can go up to a light switch and like flick it on and off, and like
it's there,
and it's like you can do that presence. But also, you said, like, just as a cool way to play a game.
Here's what I love about virtual reality, and it kind of goes to what you guys are saying, is that it makes really simple concepts entertaining again. And it was like when polygonal 3D in video games took over with like the PlayStation and the N64. It's like suddenly very simple things became incredible again, and that's what I love about the VR. It's like just being in this world and feeling you're absorbed in it is enough. Like just sitting there and watching the butterflies fly around in 3D space and the birds flying overhead, like that's enough to keep you interested for a while. You do that from a third-person perspective in a video game, and you don't even pay attention to it. You're just running past it. So it changes your perspective of what interactive entertainment can be.
And I think with third-person games, the Lucky Tales, like you said, game proved to me that something like Assassin's Creed, where you've got this with Unity, you've got this vast expanse of Paris, and you're still in the third-person mode, but you are looking around and you are seeing way more.
It's
than
the
you
right
ever had
stick
before.
almost, right?
And I think the key is that this is where we need the virtual VR equivalent of the Power Glove.
Yeah.
I mean, we need that haptic feedback. We need to be able,
that's what no one's solved, right?
Yeah,
Is like,
that's the biggest
That's a
issue.
long ways away.
But how you interact with the world, like that's a great question.
But that's the thing. That's the biggest mental hurdle for me right now. Playing something first person. Yes, you've got me visually there, but you talk about. You talk about the uncanny valley, you talk about player agency and problems of hitting invisible walls and things like that in games now. Now, the hands I'm seeing aren't my hands. The feet I'm seeing aren't my feet. I'm not feeling the wind when I'm, leaping into a haystack.
They haven't really figured out how to control it yet.
Yeah.
I mean, they're still trying to sort that out. I mean, ultimately, do you have like a treadmill that you walk and run on? Like, how does it work?
We're still using controllers. We're still using controllers, but let me just throw this out there as part of perhaps a grander scheme, because the only people who haven't jumped into the VR space yet is Microsoft and Xbox.
Right.
But they have just bought Mojang.
Yeah.
So you think about Kinect, which has been laughed at. The tech still doesn't work properly, but the potential is there. Kinect, VR, Minecraft. There's your virtual world. There's the camera working with the hands. Voice control as well. As you can move. If they can get those two together, the Kinect to work really well, and then go VR, we'll partner up with somebody.
That's the gaming industry's biggest if in history. If they can get the Kinect working really well.
Look,
but that's why
and tie that into Minecraft.
I have a British accent. My Kinect doesn't understand me. My wife can tell me dinner's ready and it'll pause the game.
I think Kinect is kind of done. I mean, I don't see them.
I
really
think
putting any
Microsoft have
focus on it.
invented too much. I think Microsoft is still. I think this is why they haven't jumped down the VR thing yet, and this is why I think perhaps they purchased Mojang.
But that's why I'm interested in Morpheus, because the one thing that the Morpheus experience had over all of these were these Move controllers, where we all think like, well, the only thing to play with the Move is Joust, Now you've held two of these Move controllers, and even though the fingers aren't moving, I still have my hands again in 3D space. And that was the most impressive part of the Morpheus demos to me, is like, oh, hands now.
Right, just tracking your hands.
Yeah, shield and sword.
But then with Morpheus, you have like the low-res screens.
Yeah, we haven't seen anything. We haven't seen any updates since E3, and at E3 there was a lot of that like Generation 1 Oculus prototype, right? There was still the ghosting and worries about refresh rate.
Oculus is, to me right now, is the far superior technology between the two. But you're right, they do have an advantage in that you can sort of get the animation of your hands and feel like more than just at your head is in this.
But I think Oculus wants to partner with anybody right now. I think they're open to it. I think the reason you're not seeing something like that from, it would be really easy to just drop Oculus support into the PS4 or drop it in with Kinect. These guys want to own their own VR headset. They don't want to partner with anybody else.
But part of it is the hardware, and I think that's the thing is like Oculus talking about running 90 frames per second, stereo. You got to have a really powerful machine. And I still wonder what the solution is going to be, because Morpheus, you at least know is for a closed system for PlayStation, so you know it's going to work as an all-in solution.
Yeah.
With Oculus, what they have to solve is like, are you buying a Steam box? Are you buying like a super high-end PC? And there's a big audience of PC gamers, but I don't think people realize how much horsepower you're going to need to really drive.
The things are going to
the kind of experiences we're seeing.
As you said, with Drive, the games that are going to benefit are going to be racing games, flight sims. They'll make a comeback. I mean, Elite Dangerous is going. It would be so cool with VR. And then you've got the peripherals. So the peripheral makers who do the flight sticks are going to be queuing up to work with Oculus, because you can have the Oculus driver, the driving wheel or whatever that pops up in the game is accurately,
Everybody's calling their moms. Do I still have my Steel Battalion controller in the attic? Can you bring that down?
But I mean, that's where it's going to come back to the early adopter of the PC gamer, and I think those shooters. I can't see Destiny being fantastic on VR, but Elite Dangerous, NASCAR, turning left continually, the F1 games.
That's an experience, and it may be a mode in certain.
I mean, I can
any game
see
where you're
those.
sitting down in the game.
But again,
perfect.
But even like a racing game, like even in Gran Turismo, to like look around inside a car.
It adds something to it. I mean, they've tried to do that with like Kinect, and like it doesn't really work. Because when you look away, you're not looking at the screen anymore.
So maybe there's like a VR mode for a game. All right, we'll find out. VR is coming in 2015, they say, and we will be back next week with more bonus round here on GT.